Alright, y'all, welcome back to another edition of Collector's Market Watch, where we talk about all things Lorcana from a collector's perspective. That means chase cards, sealed product, and promos. And y'all, it is that time of year. It is reveal season for Whispers in the Well. It feels like every single day that goes by, we have more great pieces coming out, more leaks being revealed, more great content from great content creators giving us those updates. Hopefully this is another one of those updates and another great piece of that puzzle. We're going to hop into it right now. But y'all, before we do that, real quick, you know it would mean so much to us if you'd consider scrolling down and smashing that subscribe button. We do Market Watch content on the channel every Tuesday, just like today. Pack opening content every Sunday, every Thursday. Also, go jump in the Discord. Link is down in the description. And with all that out of the way, let's hop into the Discord right now, because that is where the fire is. That is where the tea is being spilled. People in the Cord right now doing absolute God's work. Shout out each and every one of you. So appreciative of you. Especially AVN, who's been posting so much great stuff in the Discord. We have so many different leaks here in the spoilers channel, but one thing I wanted to highlight from a collector's perspective is going to be Baloo. This card came out, at least at time of this recording a few hours ago, which, it might be a little bit sooner than that, but things are super fluid right now with respect to releases for Whispers in the Well. Honestly, by the time this video posts, there's probably going to be another card that gets revealed from an enchanted perspective or, whatever it might be. Which is a super exciting time, and that also affects other things in the market, so we're going to talk about those things. But just a quick call out on Baloo. We can scroll in and actually have a once over of it. Absolutely beautiful character enchanted. I would say most likely probably going to be, if it's a playable card, mid to upper tier from the price range, from the price spectrum. If it's not playable, probably mid to lower tier. That's just kind of how those character enchantments work out. But an absolutely beautiful card, and we'll see what comes of it. As of this recording, it looks like Baloo and a couple of other characters have been revealed. Also, maybe a couple of others, which we'll talk about here momentarily. But no, super solid card, super solid character, absolutely proper Disney IP when we think about the Jungle Book. I believe it's a rare from Whispers in the Well. That's the non-alt art variant. So absolutely beautiful to see there. Beautiful recall out, and appreciate all of you posting all that stuff in the Discord. Very, very, very much appreciate that. Let's hop into the market here and talk about a couple of things. First and foremost, I'm probably just going to do a call out of Whispers every single week, track the price of it so we have it for documentation, to make sure that we understand how things are tracking. But y'all, I'll be honest, when we look at things from a Whispers perspective and we're looking at how that price range is tracking, really, we're in a very, very stable situation from a market perspective right now, which is fantastic. So let's talk about this. So right now, we are pretty much just living in this mid 600 price range for a case. Booster box is 150, obviously 150 times 4, 600, but you do pay that little bit of a premium because it didn't work out for me, but look, you should have the idea that you have a decent chance of pulling one of those chase cards. If you do get the sealed case, your ratio, from that perspective of being able to pull that hit, if you want to be able to market that or go and pull that card, you have a much better chance of making that happen, right? Especially one of the iconics. However, I will take this time to call out that someone did post in the Discord, someone who is a good friend of the channel who I've spoken to multiple times. You know who you are. Shout out you. If you want to go find that, if you want to go find it, you can search the Discord for it. But he did mention that, I don't know if this is true or not, but he did mention that one of his friends was able to pull an iconic from Fabled while also pulling the eye-to-eye enchanted. So that would indicate that the iconic does not take the place of the enchanted. If there's some of you out there who know that's fantastic. I did not know that, so I'm at least going to put that information forward. Again, this is how these things start to circulate. So it would make sense that a card that is that difficult to pull might not take the place of that sort of ratio hit that you're sort of going for, but super interesting call out there. But anyway, back to Whispers. Again, 150 for the box, pretty stable, not very stagnant. Also, from a case perspective, Whispers 660 kind of makes sense, that little bit of extra premium. However, when we look at Fabled and we see that same rolling 3 month, it's really been 2 months, but it's fine. With Fabled, we had only we're going to only have a 2 month from Fabled into Whispers, but then from Whispers into Winterspell, it looks like we're going to start to get back on that 3 month cadence. I believe Winterspell drops February 13th, November 7th into the 14th for Whispers, so we might start to kind of get more back on that quarterly cadence, whereas Fabled was a reprint set, which makes sense. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we start rolling through. But Fabled here, you look at the price variance for Fabled, absolutely out of control. I do think some of this has to do with the idea that we just introduced set rotation. So you only have 4 sets that you're working with, right? At the time, we had 8 sets, right? The first 1 through 4, first chapter through Ursula, get chopped. And then you have a new set that's coming out for Fabled, which is kind of dubbed a reprint set where there's only, I believe, 33 unique cards coming into play. However, everyone wanted to make sure they got their hands on that because the card pool's just so much smaller, right? Now with Whispers being confirmed as, I mean, pretty much being confirmed as a non-reprint set, we now understand that, right, like, the card pool is going to start to get bigger, so it might not be as aggressive to make sure you get your hands on that product. Also, the hype with the iconics, I really believe we're going to look back years from now assuming that Lorcana, and I'm going to assume that Lorcana is successful, looking back and seeing this set as just truly like one of those like lore sets, like just an absolute hype set that people talk about years to come. Super excited from that Fable perspective. However, super unhealthy price variance where it's just been all over the place. I think with Whispers into Winterspell, into Wilds, you're going to start to see where things get a little more consistent, which is absolutely what we want. And so just be on the lookout for that for Whispers. If you want to be able to go and take that hit, I don't necessarily think that from now until release, you're going to see any type of like crazy volatility one way or another. However, when it does come out, you will see that drop. So if you want to FOMO in, you can go for it. But just understand that like you kind of have the pieces on the game board right now, right? You have your information and that's just and that's going to be up for you to decide. But let's move in and talk about a couple of individual cards from Whispers. Of course, first the Demona, Scourge of the Wyvern Clan. I mean, honestly, what's funny about the releases that we got from, I guess it would have been a week ago today, which would have been like right after this Market Watch came out, which is cool. What's interesting is I kind of feel like they might have given us the big banger in the set, right? Looking at this card. I mean, this card looks to have incredibly good tack on it, as well as they have this whole by day, by night thing that they have going on with Gargoyles. So there is very high potential. Like when we talked about Baloo, you know, again, based on how Baloo is going to be used in the current meta, right? It could be mid to upper tier. If it's not really that played, it's just not the meta. Mid to lower tier, the character enchanteds do seem to hold up pretty well. And then you kind of have your items and your songs sort of filtering underneath at the bottom. And so then again, you're sort of overlooked characters kind of like float above that. That's at least been what it's been in previous sets. Doesn't mean it'll always be like that, but that is what it's been. And so until we're proven different, that's what we've got. However, this card is not going to be the case for that. This card looks like it is going to be very played and probably one of the main colors in the set. When you talk about like Blurple, probably will still have very high meta relevancy when you think about a card like Demona and also other cards that have been released. We'll talk about one of them momentarily. Honestly, I mean, to me, this card has massive potential to be the Tamatoa Dumbo of the set, where it's like the main, like the big enchanted, where if you pull it, you're super happy either because you don't have to buy it for your deck, or you get to sell it at an absolute, like inevitable premium as it currently lives in set rotation. Really, to me, the only card that I see as of now, because we still have releases that have to come out. We're not there yet. Like we still have, things are, like I said, things are fluid. By the time you hear the next content creator talk about something, things have probably changed, right? However, the only card that I could see really touching Demona would be the Cinderella Dream Come True. A couple of them I think have already sold on TCG Player, which is some crazy FOMO, but that's okay. I mean, that's perfectly fine. But coming in at market price around $50, I mean, honestly, I don't see, again, I think I heard someone say this, that like the Dumbo is like the number one in like legendary, right? That kind of started in that crazy like $70 price range. You look at it right now, it's like, it's below, like it's just constantly starting to float down, right? Cinderella will be no different, right? However, not only is it a card that absolutely has potential to be played, and oh, would you look at that? It's a Sapphire. Like who knows? Meta can always change as new sets come out. But look at that. Look at Sapphire. Just the darling color in the meta right now. But at the same time, also a Cinderella, I actually do think there's massive potential that this will get an enchanted. Could totally be wrong. This is me just having fun, chucking out guesses, throwing darts. But I think this has massive potential to get an enchanted just because right now in set rotation, Cinderella has two enchantments. It has, of course, the Ballroom Sensation, one of the most beautiful artworks in the entire hobby, and then also the Cinderella from Ursula's Return. Both of those cannot be played in constructed rotation. It has to be an infinity format, right? So it's an absolute golden opportunity to give another classic Disney princess that nod, and I think that there's a high chance that it could. So again, Cinderella and Demona, they'll probably jockey for that top position. However, on the other side of the spectrum, when we think about enchanteds and, in terms of like investment and if you pull it, how are we feeling about it? The Black Cauldron is most likely going to be one where, if you pull it, it's not good looks. I mean, like realistically, and now, however, that might not be the case. There is absolutely potential that this card could be played. However, I mean, when we think about like the hardcore collector sturdy threads that we pull on, right? The Princess thread, the IP thread. Black Cauldron is, just like every other Disney IP where it's a phenomenal IP that has a ton of following and people love it. But when you think about it compared to like the classic Disney, it's just not. There is a hierarchy and it's just not there, right? Anybody who I have love for the IP just like the next person. But taking away from Black Cauldron, like let's take the name off of Black Cauldron. Let's just talk about it from the perspective of comparing it to other items and other songs and other IPs, that have used item and song enchanteds. They just typically don't hold up. The only ones that typically hold up are meta relevant, right? So if it's meta relevant, fantastic. Like you're going to be able to have your sort of window in there as a collector to be able to say, great, I'm going to keep it because I want to collect the Master Enchanted set, Master, Chase card, alt art set. Or if I'm a game player, I want to sell it to be able to go get something else. Great. I have that like peak FOMO time where I can slide out of it, exit my position, get play sets of other things, like very possible. But again, I would be very surprised unless this card is extremely played that it's not bottom of the barrel. If it's played, then it will be. But if it's not, like where it's probably going to be, living. It's going to be living in that devil's eye diamond type life, right? I mean, that's just kind of the way she goes. But lot to be said here, lot to still be uncovered about it because we don't know the full scope of the Whispers meta. We don't have the full landscape of it yet. So more to come on it. It doesn't mean it's going to be bad. It doesn't mean it's going to be good. We don't know. However, what we do know is it's an item, right? It's not a character. So we'll see how that goes. The other call out that I do want to make, and this has been talked about, across the spectrum from, multiple different content landscapes and places where you might find this information, but I want to talk quickly about the Dragonfire promo. As we know, this card has seen some serious market movement here in the last week or so, absolutely roasting in price off of the heels of learning that we're going to get a unique art of Dragonfire. So I want to talk about this because they're starting to introduce it's not invisible, but it's a very unseen layer of the hobby that can affect us as collectors. Okay, so the Dragonfire promo roasting in price because this would be sort of what we would consider max rarity for the card, right? It's the one that you were able to get as a contestant at one of the DLCs for showing up. You sign up, you get there, you get this card similar to the Pegasus gift for Hercules, right? That's what's going on in season 2 of DLCs. So not only do you get this card, but it's also, it's not just a cold foiling, like it's a legitimate proper holo foiling, like it's a borderless art, right? Like if you're gonna run this, like you want to run this variant, right? However, when we look at the Dragonfire, when we think about it like, oh, it's a reprint, it's like, well, it is and it isn't. And it is. I mean, it is. Like, so here, let's talk about it from the perspective of this is a good thing and a bad thing. Let's talk about good. This is absolutely a good thing as a collector. As a collector, from a nostalgia perspective, like, what do we want, right? We want unique artworks, bro. Like, I mean, that's absolutely what we want. We want the ability to be able to say, like, I have, this character that I love from this IP that I love, and I have the ability to get multiple different arts and just keep feeding into that nostalgia, right? And so when we think about this new art that we have coming in with Whispers in the Well, as it pertains to not just the promo, but I did want to pop up the uncommon from the first chapter. I mean, this is going to be one of the only times that you see me show a common and an uncommon in Collector's Market Watch, but it is a very interesting time right now because of this sort of new art arc that we're walking down here. Because on one hand, the promo cannot be pulled, right? It's not retail. Like you have to go somewhere, you have to earn it, right? Or you have to get it on the secondary market. These cards can be pulled, right? So while it's not a huge deal here, because it's a common and an uncommon, like you're going to open a box of Whispers and probably pull this card. That's great. However, this can start to lead us down the path of other, right, new artwork. So the difference between the new art and sort of the like alternate art that just happens to be a new art, there's differences, right? So let's talk about this and how it affects the market. So let's use Hades as an example because it is a perfect example, okay? So we see the Hades here and we see the alternate artwork and we say like, oh, hey, look, that's a new art. That's so cool. That's a new art. Again, yes and no. It's a new art, but it's not a new art with respect to what they're doing with Dragonfire right now. With Dragonfire, they are taking a card from first chapter, the uncommon, and they are sliding it into Whisperers. 2 cards that can be pulled, same exact look and feel, same exact art, right? But it did not come with a reprint stamped attached to it. The Hades did, right? So with the Hades, we see here that we have, yes, the alternate art Enchanted, which is just an absolutely beautiful card, and that is a new artwork. But that new artwork stems from the fact that there was a 1-for-1 legendary reprint from the first chapter and from Fable. Besides the number on the card, the 1 and the 9, like this card is absolutely identical. And also, I guess, the identifier hollow on the legendary. It's very smart that they started doing that. But other than that, this is a 1-for-1 that just happens to have an alternate art attached to it, right? Like, so there is a difference there. It'll be interesting to see down the road if they decide to do, I guess, what I would call like unique alt arts. So like what I'm thinking of is like there's like Starlight rarities and Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff like that where it's like you can't pull a normal variant of the card. It only exists as a chase. So imagine, if you will, that the Mickey Brave Little Prince Legendary, that doesn't exist, right? There's only the Mickey Iconic and the Mini Iconic. Those, like, the only way you can get your hands on those cards is to pull that. I'm sure that wrinkle will probably come at some point with Lorcana. We're just not there yet, but this is kind of a step in that direction. So just sort of keep your eyes on that. So when we think about the Dragonfire, like, yes, it's a reprint, but we would more dub this as a new art, right? I'm not seeing like the dragon breathing and the dragon breathing, and the only difference is, you know, the set number. Like, no, it's a unique art, right? So I do think we're on the path to potentially saying like, hey, I'm just going to make an Enchanted out of this. And it can affect the market. It really can. The card that I would use as an example of this, it's not necessarily the most played card. However, it does fit the bill for Fable. Stitch Carefree Surfer, right? Again, similar look and feel to the Hades. However, they already made that Enchanted of Stitch Carefree Surfer. They made it in the first chapter. And the card did pop a little bit in price. Now, granted, like that's not necessarily like the nucleus of the meta right now, so you're not going to see the insane pop that you might see with some others. But that's sort of the reverse effect that we're going to start talking about right now when we think about, as collectors, what do we need to make sure that we're prepared for? Be prepared, just in case these certain things happen. So I'm going to pop 2 examples up here for us, and let's look at them together. The 2 that come to mind immediately are going to be the Sisu Empowered Sibling and the Diablo Devoted Herald. So like looking in at both of these 2 cards, let's just do the once over. Both of them from a rolling 6. Obviously, we see absolutely getting slaughtered in price. And it wasn't too long ago that I remember talking about the Diablo and the Sisu and being like, yo, just please wait on this, right? Just like every card that's in rotation and can be played. Now, granted, at that time, those are both Ursula's Return cards, right? Which makes for a good comp here. But obviously, during time of Ursula's Return, there's no there's no rotation, right? Like, Ursula's Return is the meta, right? And so obviously those cards are going to just be so prevalent when we think about that, you know, that specific type of meta. However, now we can't play them, right? We can only play them in Infinity, which is still a format that, like, we'll see how that format grows and evolves. But it's really, it's a moot point compared to when we think about rotation and how that affects things. What we want to be on the lookout for is these are sort of the parallel to Stitch Carefree Surfer. When we think about like, oh, hey, like they reprinted Stitch Carefree Surfer, you know, in Fable, like that's great, right? That Enchanted, while not super played, and it already is roasting in price because Stitch is just such a huge character in the Disney universe and just a massive IP, it made it pop a little bit, but it will be nothing compared to something like a Sisu or a Diablo, where if you say, oh, hey, look at that, they reprinted Diablo in Winterspell, or Sisu in Winterspell, look at that, cool. It doesn't matter if they reprinted as a legendary, as a super, whatever. These Enchanteds will absolutely skyrocket in price, similar to that of what you are seeing right here. Same exact thing, right? That is what you're on the lookout for. So That was a super, super long road that we just walked down. But the point I want to make is that when you look at the effect of this card and what it's doing right now, what's like, oh my gosh, I came out of nowhere and popped. Just ask yourself, when we think about cards like cards that are out of rotation right now, right? Like, what are the potential cards that they could bring back that could absolutely make them go right back to where they were? Diablo's sitting at like $70 right now, make it pop right back to 150. And if you think about that card, just make sure that if you don't have it and you're considering it, like, now's the time. Right now is the time. A few months back where I was chirping like, hey, don't buy Diablo. Diablo's the meta. Don't do it. Like your time will come. Now's your time, right? Now's your time. And it doesn't mean it's like who knows? They might never reprint that card. And to be fair, Diablo, I could see them just Hall of Faming that card. Like that card was probably more meta warping than they wanted it to be. I don't know. Like, again, that's far beyond my credibility to be able to call out what they're going to reprint and how they see the future of their game going. But I think, again, the Sisu is an absolute prime candidate. And another one that I would absolutely throw out as a prime candidate is Along Came Zeus. It's such a behind the scenes type card that has such a solid, like, and similar effect to that of a Dragonfire when it's just like banish a card, like deal 5 damage, like these one-line text type things, right? That they just are able to embed into the game to be able to give players options. Along Came Zeus absolutely has that ability to have that effect. And once again, you see the same look and feel, right? Where we're sinking in price. This card at one point, like, let me look here, rolling 6. Yeah. Okay. So there's clearly somebody in here, like, right, like don't pay attention to like this right here, because that's clearly the rare variant of the card. But look at this, bro. Like, we have 175 as the high, and you're sitting here right now. You get your hands on one for literally less than half, like 40% of that right now. The moment that they reprint that card, if they ever do, all the way up. Now, all this to say, and then I think we'll put a bow on it, but with the release of Whispers and what we are seeing, and the idea that Whispers, seems like it's going to be a fully new set, like, a couple of new arts like Dragonfire, Mickey, Detective, etc. It does seem like Whispers is going to be, for the most part, just a brand new set. And that would start to make some sense where, like, okay, so Fabled, again, card pool so small that maybe they just said, we just got to reprint a bunch of stuff. We need to be able to get a bunch of stuff and pick it up, carry it into this new, this new set rotation. And who knows, maybe next year, annually, when they Hall of Fame the next 4 sets, right? Like they get out the, the Arcasias and Azurates of the world and stuff like that. Maybe in the Fabled slot, like that first slot in the new year, the new beginning of, DLC season 3, maybe we see another reprint set. Very possible. But Whispers, being fully, like, for the most part, like mostly fully new cards, it would give me the thought to believe that you probably have time with what I'm saying here. Just keep your eyes on it, though, because with Winterspell, next thing you know, they say, oh, half the set's going to be reprinted. Okay, like, I mean, that means that, like, that's a critical event for us to track, like, right there. So just keep your eyes on that and know that the clock is at least, it's not ticking, but it's at least sort of like, just have your eyes on it in terms of, like, looking forward into the future. Last thing I want to talk about is going to be, again, another call out that happened. And I feel like I'm showing a lot of non-Enchanteds, Iconics, and promos, which isn't usually the vibe for this channel. But at the same time, there's a lot going on that affects those cards. Probably no surprise. People have probably heard this news that, again, Mickey Mouse, Brave Little Prince, because of what we are seeing, hearing, coming out with the new Whispers cards and how that might affect the meta, Mickey Brave Little Prince is also popping in price. Same exact look and feel, right? However, with the Brave Little Prince legendary variant, we see that happening. Go to the iconic, and that's not really happening. Okay, now hold on. I want to go back here, because sometimes folks who see this, they might only look at the blue squiggly line here, but here's where you want to track right here. So I'm going to go backwards. I rarely go backwards. But we're going to go backwards for 1 second, and I'm going to try and dial it in here. Look at that blue line right there. You see this faded blue line right here where it shows 164 items sold, right? That is a very, very, very large number, okay? Now we go to the iconic, and it's even this big line here. It's 4 items, and it's at an earlier date than the 164, right? Really, there's just been nothing sold in the last few days while all of the Mickey Brave Little Prince legendaries have been bought up. Biggest reason for this, with this card, you are looking at undoubtedly the most talked about, volatile, liquid, just absolutely game-changing card from a collector's perspective right now. Doesn't mean buy it right now, doesn't mean don't. But people are going to do what they're going to do, right? So when we have a moment where, from a meta perspective, where we say, oh, this legendary, this super rare has popped in price, right? People are trying to get their hands on it. It goes from a $5 card to a $15 card. That's a massive spike, right? I mean, that's an absolutely gargantuan pop in price. The biggest thing that's going to help drive the movement for the alternate art is going to be the volume, how many of them are being sold. Like 164 is a massive number, and the velocity at which they're being sold. However, the Mickey Mouse Brave Little Prince on the TCG player market, on secondary markets, and same with the mini, for what they are and how expensive they are, they're already super liquid. The volume is already popping off on them, right? From at least with respect to how many would get sold for a $1,000 card versus a $15 card, right? There's going to be more $15 cards than $1,000 cards. But point being is the Mickey Iconic isn't going to see that pop because it's not going to be able to pull on that volume thread because it's already a super liquid thread. Everyone has already made up their mind on Mickey Brave Little Prince from an iconic perspective. You either have to get your hands on one right now, or it's a bridge too far, and you're going to wait. You might wait because you think it's still FOMO. You might wait because you're trying to save up for it. You might wait because you just have your own personal plan on it. But everyone's pretty much got, it's just so in focus in the hobby right now that something like a volume pop for a legendary isn't going to do the type of feels that you want it to do for an iconic, if that makes sense. But it is very, very interesting to track that card and just to see how that card is in a tier all its own. That card is just it's living in its own little world, doing its own little thing. And that is fantastic for the card, and it's fantastic for Fable as a whole going forward because that is where that card exists. But all very cool stuff there. Let's talk about a couple of things on the eBay side, and then let's get out of here. First thing we're going to talk about is another Mickey, the Mickey Mouse Brave Little Taylor D23 promo, second variation, second edition of that. PSA 10, selling for $250. I think at time at this recording, I've seen some non-slab variants, some raw variants going for high doubles, even low triples like $90, $100. Absolutely beautiful to see a pure collector set just absolutely popping in price. Really cool to see. I also think that this is one of those times where we have pretty clear indication on what you should be doing from, you're either on one side or the other. It's very binary at this point, and things are coming into focus. It's black and white. If you own it and you want to sell it, great time. Great time right now, because there's still a lot of them out there. If you are trying to get in the market for one, I don't know. It obviously, this would be a great time to just pull it back and ask yourself, okay, everybody's buying everything. Does that mean now's the time for me? Maybe. Look, if you're someone who's, again, I always like to call it out. If you're going to be here years from now and you're going to be listening to these episodes, listen to these episodes years from now. All right, because we'll be here years from now. At least I hope so. I don't know. But if you're going to be in the hobby years from now, go grab it. Whatever. That's fine. The extra 20, 30, 40, if it's $250 for a sealed box, a month from now, whatever. If it goes down, whatever. You're going to hold it forever because you're a collector and you love it, right? However, if you're in the short-term game and you're in the buy and sell, quick hit, paper hand game, you probably want to consider just pausing and going and grabbing something else right now. But super, super exciting to see the D23 cards having that love from the collector community, because the D23 cards, in my personal opinion, are the cards that are going to set the stage for the collector for the long run. I absolutely love those cards. And speaking of D23, let's go in here and shout out one more thing before we get out of here. Let's look at the original D23 promos. I'm talking about the first edition stamps. I'm talking about the Rockstar Stitch. I'm talking about the Mickey Brave Little Taylor, the one that you can't pull, but the one that is the additional 7th bonus card that you can go get at the convention. You could have got at the convention. Maleficent Monstrous Dragon. I think there might be one other underneath. There might be the Robin Hood, something like that. I think someone just bought all these up as a set. I'm seeing I'm seeing WAP, I'm seeing WAP, I'm seeing WAP right here. So I think someone just probably went in and bought them as not a lot, but just started plucking them off and wanted to finish their collection. Shout out you. That is absolutely awesome. These cards have just stood the test of time. It's unbelievable to see it. Unbelievable to see that you have the ability to go grab something that is so special in the hobby and it's been able to hold up in the hobby. The other call out I would make is that when you think about, should I be, trying to chase down 10s, 9s, 8s on these? This is one that's like the ultimate personal preference. These are the hobby market setting cards that don't look, this is truly one where it's like, just do whatever you need to do and what feels comfortable for you to grab these. Because I will say, you look at the barrier to entry for a PSA 9 Mickey, and then also, and I'll go up and show the Robin Hood here, but you look at the PSA 10 Maleficent or PSA 9 Maleficent, looking at the PSA 9 Maleficent compared to the Gem Robin Hood. The Elsa is undoubtedly the market setting card and the number one card in that set, far and away by multiple, by 2x at least, compared to typically tier 2 Maleficent, Rockstar Stitch. Those are usually the next tier. The Maleficent 9 versus the Robin Hood 10, and usually the Robin Hood is kind of your lowest barrier to entry, Robin Hood and Cruella. The 10 Robin Hood is outpacing the 9 Maleficent. Like I said, typically the Maleficent is a clear notch above that Robin Hood. So really ask yourself if you want, how much does that 10 mean to you? Because honestly, to be able to just fill out that collection, it's very doable. It is very, very doable if you're willing to settle for 9s and 8s. I am very much a 10 person, but I will say the more I look at the prices and how liquid they are from a sub 10 perspective, it's very, very intriguing, and it's a great time right now, right? People are focused on so many other things, like the second D23 variations, right? Also, the new retail sets that keep getting released, which is great, right? So just think about that going forward. It's a super exciting time in the hobby, especially for these original cards. But y'all, that's going to do it for this episode of Market Watch. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see y'all on the other side.